Hi, this is the second video of COPD, a success story. We did the introduction, and in that introduction I had talked about how I'd gone from 28% to 54% in a year, FEV, 28% FEV to 54% FEV. While we're discussing that, my daughter actually said that maybe it would be a good idea if I talked a little bit about the language of COPD. So COPD, first of all, is an umbrella name for a number of degenerative lung disease, emphysema, chronic bronchitis, anything where your lungs no longer have the capacity to regenerate itself. It is a slow deterioration of your lungs. And when I discuss about FEV is FEV percentages is how you you're staged in that particular disease. So whether you've got mild, moderate or severe COPD, all depends on what your percentages are. The lower the percentage, the worse you are. So at 18 to 15, I think they discuss transplants, 18 to 15%. I got down to last year 28%. So what I wanted to discuss today was just where I was at 28%, how that sort of looked for me. Comparatively, because of the choices that I've made, I actually was able to be a bit more active than other people I know with that sort of numbers in their FEV. But still, it's quite a difficult disease to deal with at that stage. So first of all, where I was at was the first thing that was really hard to deal with was not working anymore. I've been working since I was 14. And just the social aspect, your contribution to the community, and your confidence just flies out the window when you're not actually working or not able to work. Obviously, I was getting lung infections quite regularly, once a month, and that would put me out of action for anywhere between 5 and 14 days, where I had very low oxygen saturation, really difficult to even move. So work was sort of out of the question. I also live in the tropics, so and my trade is in offices, so they have air conditioning on 24/7 even in winter, and I couldn't have dealt with air conditioning at that stage. So it's impossible for me to work. No one will take you because you're unreliable, because you have to have a couple of weeks off work every 4 weeks, so it's impossible. The other thing that is a big reality and an overall huge thing when you're at 28% is the drugs that you have to take. Obviously you do your normal Symbicort, all of your Aspiriva, all of that stuff. Well, that's what I was taking. But every time you get a lung infection, you have to go through your antibiotics and your prednisone. Well, after that many years of antibiotics every month, you build an immunity, so it takes you a lot longer to get rid of any kind of infection. So, that sort of extended out, having 2 repetitions of antibiotics, and all the while having prednisone. Prednisone is the most horrible drug, the feeling that it's like an ache that you can't feel. It feels like it's a hunger pain, but it's not hunger, it's just an all-round ache. But what happens with it, whether you eat or you don't eat, you put on weight. So even if I didn't eat, within 3 days, I'd put on 3 kilos. So to counter that, I did a lot of juicing. Again, high nutrient diet with low calories. So that was eating. What else was there? Oh, no chance to plan. You can't plan for anything, because on any given hour you may or may not have air to be able to achieve things. So I could be getting around in the morning, doing a minimal amount of things around the house, but still mobile, which was good. But if I lost my air, there's no moving, there's no going up downstairs, there's no going out, there's no there's nothing much you can do. So you can't really plan for the future, besides the timeline that they've given you, which is a few years with low FEVs. But just planning immediate, like a month down the track or 2 weeks down the track or even the next hour, is really, really difficult. So you become the queen of contingency plans. That I found really, really difficult. And then travelling, I'm a lover of travel. I travel overseas every year, a couple of times if I can. All my life I've done that. And most of the time on my own. I realised last 18 months ago when I was at 28% that, to my complete shock, I wasn't able to travel on my own anymore. My beautiful partner had to sort of quietly suggest that maybe it wouldn't be a good idea for me to fly to Amsterdam to see my daughter without hurting me. And I've got to tell you, I argued and I was so bitchy, but he was right. When we got to Amsterdam, there's no way I could have done that on my own. I couldn't even drag a bag behind me. Could hardly carry my handbag. A lot of things happen because of the altitude. When you come down, your oxygen sats are really low. So for a long period of time, until your body settles back into it, you're very weak, and obviously no oxygen, you can't think, so you can't get yourself out of any situations. It's quite a difficult time. So it was good to have him there, but it was a shock to realise that I felt as if I no longer could do that on my own. Eating is a huge problem because at 28% your lungs are really big, your tummy is getting squashed down, so you need to eat only small amounts. I'm a lover of all food, I love food, so this was really difficult to get used to as well. Having small, tiny meals, not even meals, but just tiny portions of food, but 6 times a day was the only way that I could, because if you filled your tummy up, if you had a normal meal, all of a sudden you couldn't breathe because you're pushing on your lungs that are now quite large, So that was a very difficult thing. Depression, like every time your oxygen sats come down, your mind believes that it's dying. And so it goes through all of these thoughts about your funeral and how your partner's going to be when you're gone. What are you going to leave your daughter? Like horrific stuff, what it's going to feel like. You sort of go through that process. But if you just bear with me for a second, if you close your eyes and you can observe your thoughts are not you. That means that your mind physically believes it's dying, but as soon as you get air, you'll be fine and all those thoughts are gone. So it's not depression. They tried to medicate me for depression, and I could see that, for some people it definitely was, but I knew when I was good, I never had those thoughts. So, like when I could breathe reasonably well, I didn't have those thoughts. So I knew that depression medication wasn't helpful for me, and I was trying to decrease the amount of prescription drugs that I was taking. So that's one that I could dispense of, like that I didn't need. I think I talked about prescription drugs. The fewer prescription drugs that you can take, obviously the fewer symptoms you're going to get and that you're going to have to deal with. As the disease moves forward, at 28%, I had GERD like a million other people. When you have emphysema, you sort of naturally get this other thing called GERD, which is like a reflux, but you have it constantly. So what happens is your lungs are so big, they're pushing down on your tummy, and it's grabbing that top layer of acid that normally processes food, throws it up through your esophagus, and it is painful. It feels like you're having a heart attack. Initially, I thought this was, first of all, I thought I was having a heart attack. I won't tell you how embarrassing that was at the hospital. And then after that, I thought it might have been falling off the end of prednisone. Too much prednisone, when you drop off the end of it too quickly, it is a lot of problems with that. But then I did some further reading and I figured out that it was GERD, and so I altered my diet to suit. The other thing that I want to talk about here too on an overall thing was families and friends. Obviously, it's difficult for people to hang around with a chick that can only sit down and struggles to say a few words. So friends sort of leave quite early in the piece actually. Some friends stay around to help, which is fantastic. There's some people out there just so compassionate, so that's a wonderful thing. And then your partner, you know, like, God bless them, they're in it for the long haul, but, you know, you've got to worry about them as well. Like, how are they going to deal with this as it progressively gets worse? And I bet you they're thinking it, but they're not going to say anything to you. So that's really hard. Hard telling your family too, because for me, I was just really embarrassed, I think. In a lot of cases, I didn't tell people till way after I was diagnosed because they were asking questions. And because it was self-inflicted from smoking, it's an embarrassment that you've done it to yourself, and it's hard to ask for help when you did this to yourself. Like, you don't deserve help. So all of that comes into play. All right, so that's sort of like an overview, but from a day-to-day basis, the monthly infections are really, really difficult. You're either heading for one, in one, or coming off one. You get a few days. I used to get a few days of okay, and then I'd be heading into another one. So it was you felt weak all the time. Everything was a Mount Everest kind of event. Like, everything was a Mount Everest kind of event. I can't see what that is. Oh, being sedentary for so long. Incredible. Like, I didn't know that you could actually survive being seated for so many hours of so many days of so many months. It's incredibly hard. A bit of a trick here though. It's difficult obviously to stand when your oxygen sats are low, because it takes the large muscles in the top of your legs, which are going to suck up a lot of oxygen, and your diaphragm, which sucks up a lot of oxygen. So even standing is very difficult. Actually, it's one of the hardest things, just standing. But I've got I loaned a bike and put it in the lounge room, and anytime I felt like a little bit of extra air, I'd get on that bike and I'd pedal. It didn't have any resistance, but just to get my body moving, because you've got to know the rest of your body can flush itself out, detox with water, but your lymph glands are not going to detox unless you're moving. So you need to keep moving with that. So the monthly infections are horrible. Being sedentary is horrible. The housework impossible. Making beds, cooking dinner, sweeping floors, doing windows. There's not a chance. It's just that's where you need to call in help from friends. You can't take the bin down to the front. You can't take the bin downstairs. All of that stuff is difficult. Shopping is a nightmare because you can't really carry anything. Even pushing that trolley when it's heavy is no good. Then you have to carry it from the car up the stairs into your house, or you have to just get it out of the trolley into your car. Impossible. Getting dressed is difficult. You have one chance at that. You need to plan what you're wearing, and because you're going to be wearing it all day, it takes every bit of air you've got in the morning to get your clothes on, and so you don't want to stuff around for that. What else has it got in here? Yeah, a million different things are difficult on a day-to-day basis, and just to share, I just wanted to do this video to share that I empathise and that I was there and I do understand, and now I'm at 54%. I'm talking about 28%, now I'm at 54%. I can't think of anything that I can't do. Maybe altitude, sitting on a mountain at altitude, maybe I can't do that. But anything that I want to do, I can't see that I can't do it now. So again, this is just a message of hope. I really want to share that I can empathise with your situations. There are people out there a lot worse than me. There are people out there that are not as bad as what I was. This is just good information to share. All right, the next video, I think I might do it on water, hydrating. I'll talk to you then. Thank you.